to talk about teaching new science curriculum. I know our recording just started, so welcome everyone who's here in person and those of you that are joining us virtually, catching the recording. I was just saying that I hope you will be able to enjoy the sun and the warm weather today. Thank you for being here with us as we talk about teaching new science curriculum. This is part one, what's new with science, and we're excited to be bringing this to you. I'd like to introduce my colleague and friend, Wanda Decant. She is here with me, and we are excited about what we hope will be some useful tips to lay the foundation. There's lots of great ARPDC offerings that we hope will provide you with some tools and resources and ideas to kickstart your implementation of a new curriculum in science. You'll notice on the bottom of the slide that there is a link to a copy of this slide deck, and it's a bit.ly link, so it's also in the chat posted for you, so you're welcome to take a copy of that and possibly come back to it if you need to reference any of those parts. I hope that you are all well today, and please at any point turn on your microphones or use the chat freely. It's a short session, but I do want you to feel comfortable to ask questions or ask for clarification or extended detail if you're looking for something that will help to make this even better. All right, so I'd like to start our session today opening with a quote. This quote comes from Robin Wall Kimmerer. She is the author of Braiding Sweetgrass, and I hope you'll enjoy. If citizenship is a matter of shared beliefs, then I believe in the democracy of species. If citizenship means an oath of loyalty to a leader, then I choose the leader of the trees. If good citizens agree to uphold the laws of the nation, then I choose natural law, the law of reciprocity, of regeneration, and of mutual flourishing. I wanted to open with this quote today as I shared a land acknowledgement and a way that we are trying to really learn from the land and learn from the Indigenous people who have cared for our land and continue to be stewards of the land on which we live, work, and play, and how we as educators can really inform our own practice and try to be agents of reconciliation, leaders in stewardship, and really modeling for students how we can come to understand Indigenous ways of knowing as best we can through really active listening and through trying to understand the impact of the shared history and the decisions that have had such significant and horrific consequences for the Indigenous people, but also through the strength and wisdom and courage and all of the positivity that can come from learning from each other. So I'd like to set the stage and offer you this provocation. Imagine your students walking into your classroom and they notice something new, something a little unusual. They're curious, they're questioning. So you smile at them and you pass them a magnifying glass. You listen while they talk. They're asking you questions, but you don't answer them yet. You just listen to their thoughts, their murmurs, their connections, and their questions. And then you start to pose your own questions in return. So imagine this table set in the middle, right in the middle of where everything's happening, or maybe it's just outside of the classroom door or just inside, so they can't miss it. And you're like, why is this right in the middle? What is happening here? And then they look closely and they notice that there are some objects, some provocations, some curious things, a curious collection of what could be here. Maybe you have a bucket of rocks, a model of a building, a cup of melting ice cubes, a potted plant, a compass, maybe even something like a Animal Crossing sign. I wonder what the students would say when they're seeing all these things and wondering, like, why, Ms. Babin, do you have all these out together? What's happening? What's going on? And so you listen to them and you just let them talk, and you let them wonder, and you let them think about what's happening. And then you can start to pose some questions. And I'm drawing these questions from some resources and work that I learned years and years ago as part of the Campus Calgary Open Minds program, when we were really getting students to focus on fine-tuning their observation skills and looking really carefully like a scientist or like an artist for the details and features of an object or an artifact. Some of the things that you could ask the students about these different objects that you have on your table are like, well, what is it? Is it natural or is it manufactured? Has it been mended or changed? What does it smell like? Does it make a sound? Is it human made or is it made from a machine? What about the design? My favorite of these questions is, well, what is it worth? What's the value of it? And this question requires us to dig in a little further. You know, to whom is it valuable? Is it valuable to the person that made it? Is that cup of ice? Who might this be valuable for? And what does it matter? How does this connect to other things? And so the idea of provoking and presenting different questions and different artifacts can really start us thinking about how our science curriculum can come alive and how we can try to engage students right off the bat in the act of scientific inquiry so that they can come to be scientists in the way that they think and interact with different materials. As we're thinking about what scientists do, it made me think about the old experiment. Perhaps you've seen it or tried it before. Drop it in the chat if you've had a chance to do this before. But it's really fun to ask a group of adults or children, what does a scientist look like, and get them to draw. And so this particular website, as you can see cited at the bottom of the slide there, these were a few photos of illustrations that students drew to capture what they think a scientist does. And so what are the characteristics, not just what do they look like? And you can see that there's trends and categories about what kinds of tools or materials they might work with. There's less crazy hair than I anticipated in these four, but that's typically one of the things that happens. There's explosions in a case of stuff, and there's, you know, pens in the pockets, and people are in different settings. These ones all have sort of that commonality of being in a lab, but it really is a way of opening up the conversation as to what does it mean to be a scientist, and what are the things that we need to be able to do as scientists and as learners in the world, living on the land and incorporating all of these exciting things into our practice. What does this mean for us, and how do we move forward with it? This brings us to our new curriculum. And so I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to take a look at this very text-heavy screen. What I've done is I've gone into the subject introduction for the new science curriculum, and I took the liberty of bolding and enlarging some words that I thought might be key in terms of understanding an overarching introduction to the science curriculum. Now, I know that you might see different words that will maybe thought should have been enlarged or created, but I wanted to give you a minute to look over this and see if this aligns to your own perceptions of what you think the new science curriculum is going to really be about. So I'm just going to pause and give you a chance to read or peruse this screen and some of the essential ideas within. I wonder if you're starting to see some key things that are really connecting to your own perspectives and perceptions of what the science curriculum will be. maybe in the chat, could you please respond and let me know how aligned you think this summary is to what you thought it would be if you haven't had a chance to read it. So my question again, how aligned is this summary to your initial perceptions of the curriculum? While I'm giving you a chance to do that, I wanted to just draw on a couple of those connections. The first thing that stood out to me was the interconnected disciplines, and also the idea that science is creative and collaborative and dynamic. Look at all of these dispositions, these competencies that are evident in this slide, in this initial introduction. The idea that we need to find evidence, but we need to find it through experience and methods, that we're uncovering data and we're nurturing our curiosity and trying to develop an understanding of the world, that we want to be critical thinkers that can use knowledge and literacy to really think deeply about important issues with reason and an understanding of the concepts, that we might need to be open to diverse cultures and perspectives. We're going to use tools and technology, and it's all going to be woven into our daily lives. I'm looking for some of your comments now. Maybe noticing some things that are a little bit different. Thank you, Jen. Not quite fully aligned with what you initially thought, particularly the creative part. Yes, the ways in which we describe some of the science doesn't always come out sounding like it's creative, right? Thank you, Kim. You're getting behind this statement. Yeah, me too. I love it. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Carol. I appreciate that. So when we think about this introduction, I just want to show you where I got it from, because it's not the entire piece, but I wanted to just give us this as a way of grounding our thinking today and going forward with how this might develop into our practice. So when you go into the New Learn Alberta site, and I do have it open here, please make sure that if you haven't had a chance yet to get an account and make sure that you're logged in, I hope that you'll really be able to do that. And so when you go into, so right from your home, you can use this blue tile to come into the New Learn Alberta, and you'll arrive at Alberta's K-6 curriculum, browsing on your subject, and clicking right onto science. This is where this first paragraph right here is what I captured for you. You can see that there's a little bit more text there. And if you click here, you get more info, as well as a description of scientific methods and the physical, living, and digital world. So there's a little bit more there that I hope you'll circle back to. And so that is where I found that information, just to give you a sense and some grounding so that you can see where that sort of front matter, that foundational learning really is and where it lives. And so the first thing that I want to point out is that when we look at our previous curriculum, or the curriculum that you're working with this year, you'll notice, as you know, that it's designed around topics, and that these are, 5 topics per grade, and that's how it was all organized. And so the new curriculum follows the same architecture and design of the other provincial curricula. So the ELAL, the math, the phys ed and wellness, if you are looking into French immersion perhaps, then you'll see that all of the new curriculum uses the same architecture. And I got to tell you, this is really good news for us looking at the science curriculum, and I'll show you why. So the organizing ideas, and perhaps this is a review for some of you, but if you haven't, the organizing ideas are this sort of the top of this spiral, and it's showing with the rainbows and the colors there, how each of these pieces work together and the relationship that they have with each other. The organizing ideas are logical categories that incorporate all of the information that falls within that section. So the body of knowledge, the facts, the concepts, as well as the skills and procedures that demonstrate knowledge of that subject. The way that this is organized now, rather than having topics that are dispersed throughout the grade levels, each of these organizing ideas live in most of the grades from kindergarten to grade 6, and potentially will transcend the other grades as they move up into the middle and senior schools. And so the organizing idea here, you can see my mouse circling the word matter. And then the orange boxes below show that the organizing idea of matter will exist in kindergarten all the way through grade 6. Energy lives K to 6. Earth systems, also K to 6. Living systems doesn't start until grade 1 and carries through. And space begins in grade 4. So for those of you that are grade 3 teachers, you will be able to also look at the grade 4 curriculum. And likewise, we're always looking ahead and beyond the grades in which we teach. But you can see that there's a difference and a scope in terms of where these organizing ideas will live in each grade level. Computer science is an additional piece that's new into this curriculum, although, and so you'll see that the knowledge, skills, and understanding for computer science begin in kindergarten, and scientific methods begins in grade 1. So if I come back to New Learn Alberta and show you where I was with the subject introduction, you'll notice that there is another tab at the top right-hand corner that you can toggle between the subject introduction and the organizing ideas. And this is where I copied that grid from. I just wanted to bring it into a place where we could see how that looks and what that will look like in terms of a scope and sequence for those topics. And now, rather than working through various topics at each grade will uncover the concepts, knowledge, and skills that derive from the same organizing ideas. This is going to be really helpful if you're in a split grade. Maybe some of you here are in a 2-3 split. And so you can look at the organizing idea of matter or energy or earth systems, and you can use outcomes from both grades in a much more cohesive way. It'll be a little bit better than trying to teach, let's say, rocks and minerals and from grade 3 and the small and crawly animals at the same time. So it'll be able to offer a little bit of cohesion and consistency to your planning. This leads us to the guiding questions. And within each organizing idea, there are guiding questions that attach to the learning outcomes. And these are really important when you think about the competencies and the critical thinking that was evident in that original description of the science curriculum. We want to make sure that we set the stage for students to really engage in higher order thinking. We want them to form an opinion and show some evidence or back up your ideas. We want to throw in debatable questions to help increase student interest and help them to form those opinions. We want them to understand the nature of the relationship between different things. So it's not just about developing a body of knowledge in one area, but rather we want to be able to take that and transfer it to another situation or another context. And so the guiding questions can be really important in helping us to do that. Let me show you how. So let's go back to our table of random clip arts that I put on the table. Wouldn't it be so much better if it was in real life and you could all just touch it and stand around? Anyways, imagine that those are real things, okay? Especially the model of that building. I can imagine looking in the windows of that one, but at any rate. I pulled the organizing idea from Earth Systems. I hope you can see it. It's a little bit small. I'll just read this to you. It says, understanding of the living world, Earth and space are deepened by investigating natural systems and their interactions. So in grade 2, the guiding question is, how can Earth's components and relationship to the sun be understood? So how do we understand how those two work together? And the guiding question in grade 3 is, what visible changes can be identified by examining Earth's surface? So I believe that these possible objects or artifacts could help us to understand the learning outcomes and could be an idea to get those kinds of conversations going. Let's dig in a little bit. So if we know that the learning outcomes are the part that describe what students have to know, understand, and be able to do. And this is the part that we have to assess and report on. And typically they include one or more concepts that are the focus for that learning and assessment. While we're talking about learning outcomes, I'd like to point out this blue box on this slide here. Sometimes it's really helpful, and some of us as learners really like to number pieces so that you can feel connected and know what it is you're looking for and what you're talking about when you're sitting with your grade team. Some of my colleagues across in the ARPDC team have created a science numbered outcome document. So this link takes you to the ARPDC website, where we are continually populating it with new curriculum resources. And this particular document, as you can see, has a legend at the top, which talks about it. It has all the grades from K to 6, so you have to dig through it a little bit. It's quite a long document, but you'll see that it's coded with the grade, the organizing idea, a numbered learning outcome, and a row of understanding. Each of the knowledge, understanding, skills, and procedures, the nickname of that is CUSPs. I'm wondering if you've heard that one yet before, but each of these come in a row, and so they've numbered these rows to let you know which one they're talking about. Okay, so this might be a document that's useful to you, and we've provided it there for you if you'd like to take a look. Thank you, Wanda, for posting the link to that slide deck again. Welcome to those of you if you've just joined. So let's dig in a little deeper. If we take the organizing idea that we just talked about, investigating, now I've done my highlighting trick again here. I took the organizing idea and I highlighted a couple of words that are big overarching macro concepts that really live in lots of different places and scenarios. And so you'll see that I've highlighted systems and interactions, because that we're really trying to figure out how does the earth work, and how does space work, and how do they work together? And the guiding question for this learning outcome is, how can the earth be understood and its relationship to the sun? So then you come to look at the learning outcome. We know that we're going to be investigating the earth, the landforms, bodies of waters, and how it's connected to the sun. And here is one little snapshot that comes from that. And so what we do here is we think about these. This is what I would offer as a possible way of structuring your diving into this curriculum, is to think about those concepts, because those are the parts that will really help to build a foundational understanding and simultaneously learning the facts and skills that they need that are listed in the CUSPs. So I've gone to take a literal unpacking of that conceptual word. So let's just play with the word relationship for a second here. In the suitcase it goes, and picture this being on the bulletin board, a big open space in your class. It's not complete. It's something that you build as you go. And so you just put the suitcase up to start, and you say, okay, what do we know about this word? And you might come up with things like, relationship. People are connected to each other. They might be in a relationship. Okay, that's good. Is there any other way we could think about relationship? Well, maybe things or people that impact each other. And then we could talk about what impact means. Is it an impact like an effect, feelings, or an effect, a consequence, or a change? Oh gosh, now we're getting into like, what is cause and effect? And so then I've just linked in this little YouTube clip, because I'm imagining talking this out with kids and trying to build this understanding with them. Well, what does cause and effect? What if, the video uses an example. The cause is it's raining. The effect is I pull out my umbrella. We might also get into, things or people. Well, wait a second, what makes a good relationship? Or what makes it not so good? So you can talk about positive and negative impacts. And the word relationship is talking all about people, and you're thinking, wait a second, I thought this was science, but it is. And then we also bring in the relationship between Earth and the sun. And we start to think, wait, are these connected? Are they in a relationship? And how do they interact with each other? And the idea of creating this conceptual foundation is that it allows for students to see that those concepts live in different contexts. And, it makes me think of the ways in which we're really uncovering tiered words and helping students to develop their vocabulary. Well, these concept words or words that have multi-meanings are tier 2 words that really have a great impact on content knowledge and understanding, reading comprehension. So these are really important to focus on and to work out when you're building those understandings with the students. And so I know that I keep going forward and forward, but please jump in if you have any questions or comments or thoughts in the chat. Are you making connections with what I'm saying? Do you think I'm out in the clouds? Here's another example. I took the word systems, and how might we break this up with students, and how might we web it out or try to think about what this means? You could do, system is a set of ways that something, or procedures for how something is done. It is not random, it is not chaotic, or it's not things are everywhere. And so what are the systems that on Earth that are bodies of water? Why do people live near water? That's really important. And why are people looking for systems of water all around the world? How is that impacting the relationship that people have with the Earth? You could also look at landforms as systems, and what happens, and how are we observing, and how does this connect to the sun? And so you can see how all of these different pieces can lead back into conversations that helps them to understand that a system can be like a school system or a class system, but it can also be how water runs downhill and it flows from the mountains and it melts from those glaciers. So there's lots of different connections that I hope you'll see as possible when you're looking at unpacking the curriculum. Just to come back a little bit further, we would definitely dig deeper into bodies of water so that we would address the necessary knowledge and skills that are outlined in the cusps. But this is a way of showing how they work together. And so I hope that that's coming through with some clarity. One of the things that is a benefit when you're looking at science through the concepts is that it gives you it's helpful to start with some of those big transferable concepts. And then there's also really key vocabulary that can help to really give context and understanding to a topic. And if you click on this link on this page, you'll notice that another ARPDC resource that my colleagues have created is a concept progression spreadsheet. And I've got it up here for you to see. I know this text is super small, but I just wanted to give you a sense of what's happening on this document. For each of the organizing ideas, you can see that it's about matter. And there's a spectrum from kindergarten through, as many as are applicable in that organizing idea. You can see that the learning outcomes have been listed for you, as well as key concepts that can help to make sense and make meaning of the knowledge and skills that you're building through the design of your learning. So you're looking at senses, you're thinking about properties in this particular one. And there's also I love that it's been articulated with some additional emphasis that there's an Indigenous way of looking at materials or questioning the process so that you can try to embed multiple ways of looking at the curriculum and the content within. Any questions about that? Thank you, Wanda, for adding that onto the notes. I'm watching the chat and listening if anyone wants to jump in. Okay. Here's another example. Let's unpack the concept of change a little bit while we're thinking about the science curriculum. Change is one that's going to live in almost every unit and every grade. And I wanted to include this one because when we think about multi-meaning words as we're introducing vocabulary, there's lots of different images or provocations or comparisons that help to set the stage for what that word really means. And then students can start to look at it, how that concept can represent their thinking. So imagine here that you have this ball of plasticine, and you want to ask the students to represent some of their learning in a hands-on way. Well, imagine you've just started talking about bodies of water and how the land forms around the body of water, or how the rivers are cutting through the rock over time, and you're learning all of those different things. Then imagine giving the students this ball of plasticine and saying, can you share a story of change with this material? And what could you imagine that students could come up with? Maybe it's about the landforms and they could carve in a little riverbed or through the valleys and the hills. But maybe they would also see that change can live in a lot of ways. Maybe they they use their plasticine to create an extinct animal that has that no longer exists. One of the outcomes in the grade 3 under the learning outcome is to look at, the fossilized remnants of and the stories that come from the past and the changes of that. And so there's lots of ways that you can represent those changes and use the facts, but to show it through a dynamic way. Has anyone had a chance to try something like this, or what other kinds of stories of change might you represent with this material? I'm going to take a sip of water while you share your ideas with me. What kinds of stories of change could you share with this material? Wanda, what would you do with this one? I'm putting you on the spot now.
No, that's okay. I was just actually looking up the curriculum in the background to see what's exactly in 2 and 3 specifically. Because my head first went to, you sort of mentioned it, but to create a more like rough, jagged rock, and then to slowly like round it out a bit as it's been sort of weathered over the years.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. That reminds me of a field trip that we took grade 3s on just after the floods at Elbow Falls. We took the students out with so that they could document and find evidence of erosion and change in the landscape after that particular event. And it was really quite amazing in the first couple of years after the flood, because before our government had the chance to sort of repair and our national or the provincial parks got in there was like overturned picnic benches and all the roots exposed, and that was such a significant and terrible occurrence. But even in years subsequent to that, you could really look on the riverbanks and get a chance to see what that looks like. And so it was a very open experience as a field trip, but we had structured it in such a way that students used photographs and their journals to capture evidence. And they sometimes even did little video clips where they were explaining the erosion and the weathering that they were able to observe. So I would like to see that in your blue ball of plasticine as well. Kim has another example, and Farzana, thank you. Yeah. Oh, and changing the green, I can also a topographical map, right? To create a model of what they're seeing. Well done. Molecules in a solid, liquid, and gas, phases of the moon. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't take too much, just a material that can help them to represent their thinking. And what I really love about this is the natural differentiation that's embedded in a process like this, because it gives those students who maybe aren't as equipped yet to articulate their thinking and writing or orally. And so this can be a really inclusive way, or maybe it's a combination of all of those things. So low floor, high ceiling. Thank you, Kim. Well done. I love it. Okay, let's keep going. I want you to get outside if you're not already there. So here's another picture of a suitcase and a different way of using it. So what if we provided them with a statement, and I pulled this statement right out of the understanding in the curriculum. The Earth's surface changes over time. And so using a thinking routine, like I see this image, I think, I wonder, and really giving space for students to be the scientists observing and thinking through those things. what happened? Why are the colors changing as you get closer to the water? How long did it take for this to happen? And as you dig deep into the knowledge and skills and procedures in this part, you can see that there's lots of ways that you can unpack this and give them pause for discussion and for drawing and thinking and building and pulling it all together. I'd also like to say at this point that there are some great resources in the Digital Human Library platform that you can access. They have amazing like virtual reality or virtual tours where you can get right into different places in the earth. So you could go to a volcano or something and get right in there and see what it might be like. And so we do have access to some pretty awesome materials. And within the new Learn Alberta, you can also access materials that are available. I'm just going to pull out one. Here's a grade 3 outcome analyzing how materials have the potential to be changed. Maybe you've seen this before, but if you click on this little eye, it will pop out to a flyout and it will give you a perception of what all of the cusps are listed there for you. But in this, you can toggle between the cusps and also the resources. And then you can see that we have access to some very specific reading materials at those grade levels that are targeted right to the learning outcome. So a book entitled The Nature of Matter or A World of Change. Some of the learning outcomes also have gizmos, which are like digital platforms that you can use. And so don't forget to check out the resources in that. But I will talk more about resources next week. Focus, Babin, here we go. Okay, Earth's surfaces change over time. Here's another one. I would also encourage you to play with asking the students really provocative questions like, did humans cause too much change to the earth? I learned this strategy, Wanda and I learned this, and hopefully you've had a chance to hear Garfield Ginny Newman speak to this at some point too, but he is really about from the critical thinking consortium perspective, and he's really about creating the conditions so that students have to develop a sound explanation or reasoned sense of evidence to back up their thoughts. And so when you're looking at the knowledge in this particular one, what kinds of human activities that can change the Earth's surface include, and here's some things that we can list, but why not like really get them to decide, well, how much change is okay? And how much change is too much? What would that look like? Here is what would be called like a dashboard. Doesn't it look like a speedometer? But you could pose this question to the students to say, do humans cause too much change to the earth? And they have to decide where on that spectrum they would stand in terms of their opinion. And Garfield would tell us to open up the beginning of the unit with this question on the first day, or really at the beginning, and have them place they might even not really know. They're like, I don't know, it seems like a nice place that we have so far. Well, maybe they'll say, no, it's not been changed too much. And then have them do it again in the middle of the unit, or circle back to this question and get them to rethink, has your position changed? Or maybe you started out and you're going, yes, it's too much change, and now they've changed their mind. So this question, you might have a way to make it better, or make it align more with the students in your care or the content that you want to uncover. But it's just a provocation to help you think about getting students to really dig deeply into the world of science. I pulled this particular You Are an Explorer this screen capture out of one of my favorite books. Wanda, will you capture this one in the chat again for me? It's How to Be an Explorer of the World. It's called A Portable Life Museum by Carrie Smith. And it's just really encouraging us to practice being an observer, and to look carefully, and to collect ideas, and to scribble and sketch and draw and ask questions. And so I really want to keep that at the forefront. I'd like to share a very short video with you. This is about the ways in which we can take all of the organizing ideas, the guiding questions, why we want students to think deeply, and why we want them to develop these skills and the knowledge that can really lead them into the future. And I hope you'll enjoy.
There are so many unknowns in the future. It's critical to have a growth mindset and some key skills to be successful. Think of it like this tree. We are always growing and branching out, and the skills you learn today can help you adapt for tomorrow. Navigating our changing world requires clear communication, effective collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. How you adapt to and approach challenges distinguishes you from the crowd, whether you're deciding what courses to take or thinking about possible future careers. Understanding how to push yourself in new situations will help you grow and strengthen your skills. There's more to you than just your school, your economic situation, or your social feeds. Tap into what makes you unique. Your abilities and creativity are what help you see things differently, problem solve, and better deal with uncertainty. Share your knowledge and ideas with your peers. Keep it simple and value the opinions of others. Be open-minded about what they bring to the table. Work together to create common goals. By creating solutions together, you will become the change makers of tomorrow. Adopt a growth mindset. Ask questions. Approach problems as challenges. And break information down into smaller pieces. Tackling tasks this way efficiently manages information and creates more innovative solutions. Mistakes are simply opportunities to experiment and advance in new directions. It takes several years for a seed to grow into a tree, adapting to changes along the way. The future may seem far off, but you can apply these skills today. Whether you want to start a business, work in a particular profession, or maybe even envision a career that doesn't exist yet, keeping these skills at the forefront of your thought can take you anywhere.
And so thinking about how we can develop those skills at an early age, we want to start when they're really young to develop these competencies. And the Alberta competencies still exist in our curriculum, and they have not changed through this recent round of changes. And so you can see the list of competencies here. And I want to also show you that within the New Learn Alberta site, there is a link to the competency progressions that can really help you to layer in this emphasis on learning these particular aspects of how to be a scientist as well as a well-rounded individual. Here are two examples: the critical thinking progression, as well as research and managing information. So if we take a look at this Division 1 component right in here, critical thinking involves reasoning logically to analyze and synthesize new knowledge with existing knowledge in a coherent way. So I ask questions to help me learn. I use criteria to form opinions or make decisions. I synthesize information. And maybe it's also about, I organize and combine information. I listen to my friends talk about what they think, and I can have an opinion about that. And so these are all important, and we can layer them into the learning design as we go. This example comes from the current curriculum, but I wanted to use it because it's really a nice example of how the competencies are embedded into the criteria for the assessment. This unit was a grade 1 unit about structures, and they were looking at how structures were created to connect people and communities. So you can see how they were looking at those concepts and pulling the pieces together. Here is a model, a drawing that goes with it, and also articulation of how that and communication of how that structure was built. So building strategies like I focused and I blended and I used reinforcements. But I really wanted to show you this snap on the right-hand side, where this particular student chose two of the skills that are like those competencies. She chose to describe self-management skills by emphasizing pride in her work. And she also demonstrated thinking skills because she asked someone if she should use a pipe cleaner around the bottom and if that would be a good idea. And so taking feedback and being able to use it and discuss that, articulating that that's part of the competencies and the development of that. So I hope that that will be a little bit of an inspiration for you. An additional piece that will offer you a little bit of support. Some people really like to see the old curriculum and the new curriculum lined up together. So if you are that kind of learner, I welcome you to this link, which was created also on the Alberta Regional Professional Development Consortia website. And you'll see the link here as well. And you'll be able to come to these curriculum comparison documents. So here is the grade 2 version. And when you go into this compare doc, you will see, I'll do this really quickly for you, but the far left-hand column here is the possible links to the 1996 science curriculum. So from those topics, you'll see how we're trying to align it with what would be in the new curriculum. And these 3 columns, organized by organizing idea, this one's all about matter. You can see the learning outcome, understanding, knowledge, skills, and procedures. And so, for example, grade 2, this particular outcome links to possibly the grade 1 building things and a little bit from the boats and buoyancy. And if there isn't a link, this part will be blank. And so you can see both of those aligned together. So thank you to my colleagues who have created those opportunities. Within this this website, you'll also be able to see lots of recordings of slide presentations that go really deeply and wonderfully into each organizing idea and at each grade level. So here's living systems for grade 1. You'll see them for each grade, and you can actually sign up for some sessions so that you can receive the recordings, or you can find them right here. But these go into much more detail specifically about living systems in your grade level and some ideas and resources that can help you. So check it out, and kudos to my teammates for hopefully we're trying to find as many robust ways as we can support all kinds of learners. I leave you with this wonderful poster. There she is, Ada Twist, scientist, and a downloadable poster that I retrieved from Mighty Girl website. Be a scientist, read, question, and think. And so I want to leave you with this image that the tree is showing all of the beautiful ways that you stretch yourself as a teacher. And next week, the resources will be that wooden hand holding up that tree branch. So if there's anything particular that you're looking for or that you think you need or want to share, please use the chat to let us know what we can add for resources, and we'll have it all built up for you and available next week. Thank you so much for joining us today. So glad to have you here. I hope there was a nugget of usefulness in our work together today. Thank you for your time or for tuning in. I would be talking really fast if you put me on double speed watching the recording. Do you think that I've already been talking pretty fast today, Wanda? Anyways, I hope you're noticing the crazy cat behind Wanda. Thanks for joining us today. And I will be here if anyone wants to stay and ask any questions. But other than that, have a great night. Take care, everyone.